I'm just using the tip of the iron to remove the last of the heat and gone. I found this ottoman at a garage sale, paid $3 for it. They wanted 5, but you know it's the principle. And I embroidered velvet to make a slip cover for it. I think it turned out really good. Didn't it look nice? You want to see how I did it? Well, we have to go back in time. Do you know how to go back in time? Well, what you got to do is you got to say the name backwards 3 times. Are you ready? You got to concentrate. Tick tock sewing, tick tock sewing, tick tock sewing. We have a giveaway for today's video. We have a great pack of embroidery threads. So every time you like, share, or comment, you're entered for a chance to win. Welcome, time travelers. Here we are in the past, and I'm getting ready to do my really big project. I am going to be covering that ottoman, and I'm going to be using some upholstery velvet. So today I'm talking about doing the embroideries for that ottoman, but I am doing the embroideries on a velvet. So even if you're not interested in doing a really big project, this embroidery on velvet information is something that you're going to probably want to use a little bit later on, because you never know when you want to embroider on something a little bit fancier. Now, if you would be interested in maybe doing a slip cover covering an ottoman, in your handout, I have all the little tips and tricks for doing embroidery on velvet, but I also have a few pages of information on if you want to be doing a slip cover or making a cover for a chair or something like that. So just in case you might be interested, the information's there. You might want to take a look at that. It's not 100, there's better sources. Whole books have been written on the subject. But if you're interested to see what's involved, let's take a look at the handout, and maybe you might want to dip your toe into a big project like I'm going to do today. Let's get set up for doing some embroidery on velvet. Now, the velvet that I am using in this project is I am using, for the skirt of the ottoman, I am using some what I call bonded velvet. It's a thicker upholstery type of velvet. The velvet I'm doing for the top, however, is a little bit lighter weight, and I'm going to call it an unbonded velvet. What do I mean by that? Well, on the back of this velvet, there is no extra layer that's been fused down to kind of help hold those fibers in place. So you can do a bonding if you want to on the back of your velvet. Make sure your velvet is heat tolerant. But on the back of your velvet, you could use something like Dreamweave Fusible, which will actually, you can iron it onto the back of your velvet and help hold those fibers in place. You could also use a no-show mesh. Just like I said, make sure your velvet is, it can tolerate the heat. And there's instructions for that in your handout. Little tips and tricks. I use a terry cloth towel underneath so I don't crush that pile. Now, speaking about crushing that pile, if you were to hoop a velvet or a piled fabric in your hoop, first of all, it's a little bit thick, so it's kind of challenging to get it inside those 2 hoop rings. But also, we don't want to crush this beautiful, beautiful texture. So I use a product called Wet and Stick. It's by Floriani. And what it is, it's a stabilizer, and when you get it wet, it becomes sticky, and it sticks your product down. The most important thing is, when you want to remove the velvet, you can get it wet again, and the adhesion kind of goes away. And when you pull it away, it doesn't pull any of those piles, fabrics or fibers to the back, which would happen if you were using an adhesive. Velvet does not like adhesive. It does not like tape. So a Wet and Gone works great. Now, one thing that's cool about the Wet and Gone is it is repairable. So let me show you the back of my hoop. You can see that I've already done one of the embroideries on in my hoop, and I've taken another piece of Wet and Gone and put it on the right side out here. I got it wet, and it all stuck together, so I could repair it. So you can get a wide roll that works in your hoop, but to repair it, you can get a narrow roll, and between the 2 of these, it really makes it go a ton farther. You can wet it and reactivate it, as it were, 3 or 4 different times. So it's a product that you can use over if you want to like, you know, get several hoopings out of it. Now the other thing that's important is we have that pile on the top of the fabric, and what's going to happen is the stitches are going to want to go down and bury themselves in the pile of the fabric. So what we're going to do is on the top of it, we're going to use something called heat and gone, heat removable topping. What that is a topping that's going to hold those stitches on the top of the fibers. Now I use a heat removable one. I don't use a water removable one, because even though this is a cotton velveteen and I could get it wet, you really have to soak something to remove all of that water, the wet and gone, right? So if you don't remove it all, it gets stiff. Let's just say my velvet's not going to look as nice and velvety if I've used a product like that. So I like to use the heat and gone, and I'm going to talk to you about something else a little bit later on. So that's all in your handout, the tips and tricks for stitching on velvet, all in your handout. And let me talk about how we're going to set up the Altair to get us going. And you can see I've already started with my project. Okay, so let's go to the settings of the machine, and I want to show you a few things. So first and foremost, I'm going to set up my machine, and I'm going to have it slow down just a tiny little bit. I can go to the max embroidery speed. Now in the Altair, that's 1050 stitches a minute. I'm going to take that down just a little tiny bit. I don't need to go super fast on this, because in the suggestions, now this is the Floriani information packet, and that's one of my handouts available out if you go to the website, the Floriani stabilizer guide. Tons of information, and it suggests you slow down your machine just a little bit if you're using the wet and gone. So I read the page, and that's what I'm going to do. Now, I don't have to change anything else here, but I could change something if I wanted to. I'm going to have a bunch of colors on this embroidery that I have chosen, and it has about 10, 12 different colors for each of the embroideries. Now, I can have my thread color come up as the name of the color or the number of the color. I've chosen name of color, and I'm going to tell you why in just a little bit. The other thing that I can do, I'm going to go to the next page, is I have this beautiful plum colored velvet that I'm going to stitch on. I want to see what my design looks like on that color, so I'm going to choose something that's pretty darn close to that, and when I bring up my embroidery, I can gauge the colors that I've chosen for my embroidery. And not really much else I have to change here. Let's go OK, and let's go back to the screen where I'm going. Now what I've done is I've taken a picture of how I have my final 2 roses I'm going to put on the top of my ottoman. I'm going to put one here and one here to finish off this whole embroidery for the top of my ottoman. Now I'm going to do that, but I want to be able to place them on there just so. So I've taken my fabric, I've put it into my hoop using my wet and stick, and I've taken a picture using the embroidery positioning app on my mobile device. Now, to use that, the app needs to see this area here and this area right up in here. So what I've done is I've just folded the fabric back so that the camera could see this area and this area. And when I take the picture, it's going to send this image to the machine so I can make sure to position my roses just where I want to put them. So I've already brought in the 1 rose. Okay, let's bring in that picture and see what that looks like. So there's the background. So you can see that it did take the picture and it shows where everything is, but it had a little bit darker color. To see the pretty color, I'm probably going to bring in that background again, and I can check my colors out. But I can tell I have my 1 rose here. And I know that's in a good position, but I want to fill this little gap up in here. I just so happen I want to use that same rose because I think it's going to work really well. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go edit, and I'm going to duplicate that rose. Now I have 2, and I'm going to take the 1 and I'm going to move it all the way up here, and I'm going to put it in place and see where I want to embroider it. Now, I don't want them to look like they're little twinsies like this, so I'm just going to change it around a little bit. I might want to mirror image it, I might want to rotate it a little bit, and I can change it so it looks a little bit different than that other rose down there. Let's move it around just a little bit. And maybe put it in place. Now, I might want to change the size of it. I might want to bring in a different rose. I can play around with it because I can see the image of the background of what I have already stitched on my design. Move it over a little bit. Oops! One thing that you have to remember is when you're rotating a design on the machine, sometimes if the red box is outside the area, the machine doesn't want to rotate it. So I'm going to say, okay, move it down a little bit, rotate it, and then I can move it back up to place. It's really easy to adjust it. Now I'm going to mess around with it and I'm going to play with it and I'm going to get it exactly where I want it to be. And I'm going to stitch my final 2 roses. I might want to change my mind. When we go to embroidery, I want to show you a couple more things. Remember I said I want to put in the name of the color instead of the number of the color. Well, I did that because I have a lot of colors coming in on this embroidery, right? So I can remember a name a little bit better than I can remember a number. So I have gone ahead and I've changed the colors in my little embroidery that I'm going to do here. And they come up with the name of the color when I put in the number, which is great. I can remember that. But I will have a lot of different colors that I want to bring in. So I am using a cool accessory for the Altair today. I'm using the 10 spool thread stand. Now, the machine comes with a 2 spool thread stand that you can attach onto the back of the machine. But I have a lot of colors that I want to use in my embroidery. And I don't want to necessarily have to set them in front of the machine because, trust me, I've tried and they keep wanting to fall off. So here, I have them up here in order, and I have little notes to myself. I have the name of the color right in the front, and I can attach my Post-it up there and easily know which color's which. The other thing I want to do is when I come to layout, I can tell this machine because I have 2 embroideries with the same colors in them. I can ask it to color sort those embroideries. So when I come into embroidery, it's going to do the green dust, and it's going to do this rose and this rose, and then it's going to do the foliage green, this one and this one. So I'm changing thread just a few less times, and I'm going to get through my embroidery a little bit faster. So I have to fuss with it just a little bit more. I'm going to get my last 2 embroideries put on my top. When we come back, I'm going to have it all done. I'm going to show you how I put that skirting around the outside edge, but also you may not want to do a big project. So I'm going to show you another alternative of doing some embroidery on velvet. Going to make a little pillow on velvet, but I'm going to use something sparkly because let's just take it to the next level. Let's use a luxury velvet and put some metallic thread on it. Why not? So let me get started. I'm going to mess around with this a little bit and I'm going to come back and show you what I did. So welcome back. You went into the past, now you're in the future of the past, I think. Anyway, look how pretty these roses are. Oh my gosh, they're so pretty. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off you tear off the topper as much as you can. Now I want to release this from that aqua set, the wet and set Floriani product. So what I did is I got it moist on the back. See, I did the patch and it worked really, really well. I'm going to get it moist on the back, and what I'm going to do is give it time for that moisture to seep through to the other side, and then it will actually release off. And if I didn't do that, what happened if I'd pull this away, it would pull those the pile fibers of the velvet away with it. So you got to be patient, get it wet like that, let it sit, and it's going to pull away, and I didn't have to soak it to get that adhesive back off. Now really quick, I wanted to show you how I put that topper on, and I want to show you another option. So this is a pillow, because if you have a velvet ottoman, you have to have a velvet pillow, right? So here's a velvet pillow that I'm working on, and here's another option for that heat away topper. This is the embellished mylar film, and I'm doing metallic thread. Yes, I'm doing metallic thread on velvet, and this is a mylar topper which stays with the project as well. And what it does is it holds those fibers on the top also, and so it's a 2-for-1. I get shiny at the same time I get a topper. So now I'm going to put it in. I've already brought it up, and I've done the B already. Let's get that in there. So here is the embellished mylar iridescent mylar topper, and it matches whatever color of thread that you have, which is pretty cool. And I'm getting ready to do my kind. Now, I want to make sure that this topper is on top of the embroidery where I'm going to embroider, right? Normally I would put it down with a piece of tape, but as you remember, embroidery tape, any kind of adhesive and velvet, they just don't mix. So what I've done is I put some pins in the corner of that mylar, and I want to check and make sure that that the pins are not in the way, because you don't want to embroider over a pin. So on the machine, I'm going to touch this icon right here, and that'll go to all 4 corners of my design, or it will trace around my design. So if I touch this first, that's a little light that's going to shine on down. And if I touch this, the machine is going to trace around my embroidery. I can make double sure that none of those pins are in the way of it doing when it's stitching. So that's pretty cool, right? So they're not. It's okay. I'm going to thread on up. I have some Floriani in metallic thread. Works really, really well. I'm going to thread this on up. And then when I come back, I'm going to show you about how putting it together for the ottoman. And I want to mention in the handout, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the 10 spool thread stand, how it is set up. I'm going to have that information for you in the handout as well. Basically what it is it keeps your threads organized, and you literally can take the thread, you can get it all set up so that it's going to flow really, really well, and you just attach it up here, and when you're ready to do the next color, you're just going to bring it on down, and it really makes it easy to go to do a large project like this. All your threads are organized, you're not trying to balance them on the front of your machine, and it's a multi-day project because there's a lot of embroidery. So it keeps things organized, and it's a great way to have your thread all set up. When you're ready to do it, you just pull the thread down and you go. It's not quite a multi-needle machine, but it's as close as you can get to having your threads all set up for you and ready to go. So I'm going to do the kind, I'm going to embroider that, and we'll show you that when we come back. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go grab the ottoman, I'm going to bring it in, and I'm going to sew it all together, change the machine over to sewing. I can't wait to see it. I know you've seen it, future people. I hope it looks cool, because I think it will. So let me embroider this, and then I'll bring the ottoman in, we'll set up the machine, and we'll put this project together. Have you ever had one of those challenging days? Yesterday was a challenging day. After I started the kind, big thunderstorm, the power went off. So welcome to the next day. In the past, you'll figure it out. So good thing the Altair has resumption. So when the power went out and then it came back on, I was able to finish my embroidery. Came back right to the exact same spot, so that's a great advantage. Also, I noticed that yesterday I kept saying wet and gone when I meant wet and stick. So wet and stick is the stabilizer you use. You get it wet and it becomes sticky. So I guess the thunderstorms affected me mentally too. I just couldn't talk. So I did finish kind, and it came out really, really beautiful. Notice I have the embellished mylar on there. I have the pins in the corners. It literally just tears away, and it is a great way to keep those embroidery stitches on top of the velvet. So it's a great alternative to that heat and gone if you want an extra little bit of sparkle. So now let me talk to you about the slipcover I'm making for that ottoman. Let's get this out of the way. So what you're going to do is once you get your pieces and parts done, embroider as much as you want. What you're going to do is you're going to lay it on top of the piece that you're going to cover. Now this is a slow and steady process. So go ahead, lay it on there. I pin it on the little edges. I want it to fit pretty snug. I want it to fit kind of like a pair of Spanx, if you know what I mean. So pin it on there, and then what I do is I'm going to use the Baby Lock, and I'm going to baste it together, and I'm going to try it on a couple times. Now, one thing to remember, I'm not upholstering this. I'm not an upholsterer. I can make a slip cover to cover over the top of it. If it was being upholstery, there's a lot more involved with that, and that's not my wheelhouse. I'm sure there's upholsterers out there that if you work with them, if you wanted to do some embroidery, you probably could. Wouldn't the monogram on the back of all of, big monograms on the back of the dining room chairs be spectacular? Well, just saying. So anyway, so you're going to pin along this whole outside edge and get everything to where you think it's going to be. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to the Altair, and I'm going to put on the digital dual feed, because it's going to handle all of the layers of the velvet great. So I'm going to show you how I do that on the screen. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the machine to do a basting stitch right along here. So let me show you on the screen how I'm going to do that. It's a special stitch that you can use to have it take a stitch and then a lot of different spaces. So here's the sewing. I've converted the machine to sewing, and when I touch this down here, it's going to show me that that is the basting stitch. And it shows me that I also have that digital dual feed installed on the machine. Now the length of the basting stitch, I can have it really, really long, or I can take it down to just a few millimeters if I want to. But this is going to be a stitch that's easy to remove. Now let me show you. I'm going to take this off and do a couple bases on it, but let me just show you. I put white thread in the machine so you can see how this works. So I have the digital dual foot on. Remember, the digital dual feed foot is a foot that has a band on the top that's going to pull all the layers of velvet through evenly. It's going to totally control this squirrely fabric. So here we go. I have it up in here, and all I have to do is press the power pedal, and it's going to take a stitch and then a lot of spaces in between. Because I have the digital dual feed on, what's going to happen is it's going to control all those layers, even if I have big spaces in between the stitches. Now, I'm going to do that on my regular project, but let me show you what it looks like here. What it does is it takes a stitch and it makes a big space in between. So, stitch, big space, stitch, big space, and it's super easy to remove. So, this is the stitch I'm going to use to just baste my project together and fit it on my ottoman. Make sure it's good. Quite frankly, it's going to take me a couple times just to make sure I have everything the way I want it to go. And then I'm just going to change on over to do a regular old straight stitch. I am using all-purpose thread to sew it together. If it's a slip cover, I may have to put a zipper in the side to make sure that I can easily get it on and off. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge to get it on there. But I want to thank you for watching me. Thank you for going back in time with me to see how this turns out. I know you already have seen it, but I'm not going to see it for maybe an hour or two. And I'm going to throw it over to George. But I want to remind you of something. If you are going to do a project like this and you've never done one before, I want to ask you a favor. Go ahead and be kind to yourself if you're doing something that's new to you, but don't forget, reach out, reach for the stars, because you're never going to get there if you don't try. And the Altair, a great machine, it's going to help you get there wherever you want to go. I'm going to send it over to George. Thank you for watching me on this multi-day adventure, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks, Cathy. That was an incredible presentation. Don't forget, you can click on the link and download Cathy's lesson guide on today's presentation. But I want to take a couple moments to share with you my favorite features on the Baby Lock Altair. I believe the Altair is dollar for dollar the most advanced machine on the market. There are machines that sell for thousands of dollars more that do not offer the same features. You know, the embroidery features are incredible. The 9.5-inch by 14-inch embroidery area, you can really expand your horizon with embroidery, and there's 494 built-in designs. You also have that 10.1-inch color screen that gives you all kinds of editing capability, from color to sizing to also you can actually take designs and do automatic stippling around it. It has 30 built-in fonts and 5 jumbo monograms. Now with the fonts, you have all kinds of editing capability. You can even take and put in a name or a saying and then do an applique border and turn it into applique automatically. It also has the IQ Designer. Now, this is an app that you use your smart device like a phone or an iPad, and you can send an image, a graphic image, to the machine, and it will turn it into embroidery instantly. The embroidery is amazing, but what about the sewing and quilting? This machine has 11.25 inches of space and 5 inches of height, so you can fit even the largest quilts into this machine. It also has automatic fabric sensors that will sense the thickness of the fabric, so it will set the right pressure, and with the automatic tension, it gives you perfect fabric control, from heavy denim to very sheer fabric to working with elastic or even a t-shirt collar. This machine truly controls the fabric with perfection. But also it has the digital dual feed, and what that does is that is a belt-driven walking foot system that's controlled by the motor of the machine, and you can control, even like here with this Minky, perfectly. So you have so many amazing features with this machine. But what about an amazing deal? But wait, that's not all. For a limited time, and while we have it in stock, we are offering a special bonus with your Altair purchase. So first, we're going to give this beautiful set of 63 spools of polyester embroidery thread. The beautiful shine and quality of this thread is quite amazing. Also, I'm including the Baby Lock Ultimate Stabilizer Bundle. This has the most popular rolls of stabilizer, from wash away to cut away in different colors, and this will enhance your embroidery to give you a better quality. I'm also including the Baby Lock Altair Inspirational Guide. Now, the instructions on this machine is wonderful, but what's different about the Inspirational Guide, it is written by Baby Lock educators, assuming you know nothing about the machine. So it takes you through every aspect, giving you full color. It's over 300 pages of full color description, step-by-step description. And if you complete this Inspirational Guide, you truly know everything on this machine. We're including that. Plus, we're going to include a online membership to Baby Lock's Love of Knowledge. This has hundreds of videos that give you step-by-step details on how to use the machine and also do techniques. This is invaluable, and you get a membership to this as well. You also get our famous rose gold scissors. These scissors are wonderful, both the shears and the embroidery shears. But last and not least, we put together a very exclusive design bundle by Anita Good Design. It has 17 different collections, and it comes with over 400 design files. And it's truly amazing the variety you get with this. So all this, which equals over a $1,600 value, is free with your Altair purchase for a limited time. Now we will run out of these supplies, so this is while supplies last. So click on the link to order, or you can call us at 1-800-865-9664. You can email me at moreso@aol.com. But don't wait, this deal will surely end. But if you have any questions, again, call us at 1-800-865-9664. Bye for now.